Martin Luther and the 95 Theses by Henry Timniak. The early life of Martin Luther. Martin Luther was born on November 10, 1483. He was born in Eisleben, which is located in the northeastern part of modern-day Germany. We're next to Berlin. Martin Luther was also raised there by his parents, Hans and Margaret, although shortly thereafter he was sent off to school in Mansfield because his parents had wanted a better life and education for him, unlike the rest of his family who were born into peasant lineage. His father served as an ore smelter and miner, and his mother took care of the house along with him and his siblings, which during this time was enough for them to survive, but certainly not enough to thrive. Only a few years after that, Martin was enrolled in the University of Erfurt. This was done with the intention of him one day becoming a lawyer, although everything changed one night during a very violent thunderstorm. During this, he was struck by lightning, and he took this as a sign from God and vowed that if he survives the tragic event, he will become a monk. Thankfully, shortly after the storm had passed, and he later joined the Augustinian monastery to become a monk. So while Martin wanted to continue with his studies, he also wanted to continue with becoming a monk. So between 1507 and 1510, Martin studied at both the University of Erfurt and Wittenberg at the same time. Although only after a few years in 1512, he took a break from his educational life and became a representative in Rome for the German Augustinian monasteries. During his time there, he even received a doctorate in theological studies and was able to become a professor as well. The corruption of the Catholic Church. During the early 16th century, biblical writings started to become much more easily accessible to the general public. This led to many people, such as the philosopher Augustine, stressing the importance of relying on the Bible instead of theological leaders for overall religious guidance. Along with this, during that time, there seems to be a new shed light onto the things that the Catholic Church has been doing. This led to the construction of Martin Luther's 95 Theses, which hung outside the Schlosskirche, which was a church and castle, on October 31st, 1517. Martin Luther's theses were 95 questions or objections for the Catholic Church about why they did the certain things that they did. Martin Luther's theses were heard throughout all of Germany and had two main messages. One, that the Bible is the central religious text, and two, that people should only be able to reach salvation through their faith rather than by their own deeds. He even stated in 86th Theses, "Why does not the Pope, whose wealth is greater than the wealth of the richest Crassus, build this one basilica of St. Peter, with his own money rather than with the money of the poor believers?" This statement was a very obvious jab at the Pope for collecting something called indulgences. Indulgences in the Catholic Church. In order to get penance for one's actions, you must go through 3 different steps: contrition, confession, and satisfaction. What indulgences allow is for you to skip the step of satisfaction, which is hard labor in exchange for paying the church. So basically, indulgences allowed for forgiveness of one's sins without actually having to do anything to make up for them. I think that we all see how morally wrong this is and why Martin Luther decided to question the church for it. One of the main people involved in this scandal was John Tetzel. John Tetzel was a Dominican monk who was known for selling indulgences. But what makes it even worse is that he was mainly supported by the Archbishop of Mainz, Albert, along with Pope Leo X. With their help, he was able to become a very wealthy and powerful off of taking money from the poor in exchange for salvation, which is not only immoral but also putting horrible habits upon the people by letting them think that this is really what God wants of them, because we all know that God wouldn't accept a check at the gates of heaven. Soon after the release of the 95 Theses, there was a huge uproar from the common people, which led to many protests against the Catholic Church once people realized what they had been allowing to happen for so long. This then sparked the Protestant Reformation, which was a religious reform that occurred during the early 16th century. The results of the Protestant Reformation was a division into many different branches of Christianity. This included Protestantism, Anabaptism, Calvinism, and Lutheranism. So although these were all individual denominations of Christianity, they were all under the name Protestantism because of what they broke from the Catholic Church and why. For most religions, this had to do with a slight difference in doctrine. Why does this matter? For the reason as to why this matters, I have a quote from Martin Luther that does not only apply to the 95 Theses in the Protestant Reformation, but also life. You are not only responsible for what you say, but also for what you do not say. What this quote means is that you have to speak up in life against what you believe is wrong, or else nothing will ever change in your life.